Hello everyone, welcome to my new video. So in this video we're going to talk about the poem September 1, 1939 by W.H. Auden. Okay, so let's get into the whole thing. So let's first discuss the small context of the poem. The poem September 1, 1939 was written at the start of World War II. Okay, so you have to आप लोगों को ये you have to understand this thing. September 1, 1939. It was the date when Hitler invaded Poland. आप लोगों को पता होगा हिटलर ने जब पोलैंड में अटैक किया तब से बेसिकली वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 स्टार्ट हुआ. So ऑर्डन एक ब्रिटिश एक्सपैट्रिएट थे, had recently moved to United States and was grappling with his sense of responsibility as a poet and an intellectual. This poem reflects his disillusionment with politics, particularly his disappointment with the rise of fascism and his disenchantment with the Western democratic ideas that has failed to prevent it. तो मतलब क्या है, in this poem ना the Auden feels terrible about the people who are like who are involved in this politics of war. So Auden's complex relationship with his role as a poet is evident in the poem's tone. He is critical of those whose who use art solely for self-indulgence, while acknowledging that art and poetry also cannot fully address the world's ills. So मतलब in this poem now we get to say about Auden and his relationship with poets जो poem say I feel good about this mouse, so I'll write about this mouse. So Warden feels terrible about those poets who does this because he thinks poets should also write about issues in this world. Okay, so let's not delay much about this context. I will explain more about this context further. So, if you want to, if you want to understand the poem nicely in a detailed way, we're going to do that in this video. So first, let's read the stanza. Stanza 1. I sit in one of the dives on 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid, as the clever hopes expire of a low dishonest decade. So first thing what you will notice कि there is no selective pattern of this poem. एक होता है ना हर पोएम में कुछ राइमिंग स्कीम ए बी या ए बी ई. सो इसमें कुछ खास राइमिंग स्ट्रीक नहीं है. So let's get to the explanation of the first stanza. The poem opens with the speaker in a bar on 52nd Street in New York City, feeling anxious and uncertain. This setting highlights his sense of isolation and detachment from the world, a place to observe rather than act. Auden references the 1930s as a low, dishonest decade filled with misguided optimism and unfulfilled promises, reflecting on how people had clever hopes for peace and progress but have failed with the onset of war. So let's describe and let's explain this. The poem opens and W.H. Auden is sitting on a bar on 52nd Street in New York City, feeling anxious and uncertain. So there is a funny thing here. हर मर्द का दर्द दारू में होता है. So it's like that. So W.H. Auden is sitting on a bar. वो बार में बैठ के he is feeling uncertain. Like you can understand the meaning of uncertain, right? Like he is feeling unhappy, unrest. Okay, and he feels a sense of isolation and detachment from the world. मतलब Auden क्या है? He thinks he is detached from this world. हाँ. So he is sitting there as a therapy, not therapy. You can say that he is sitting there to observe the things happening in this world, but he didn't want to act on this thing. आप लोग समझ रहे हैं ना what I want to explain? Auden, like Auden is sitting in a bar. he feels he is detached from this world. World alag hai, Auden alag hai, and he is sitting there to observe the world rather than to act. Okay. So, Auden references the 1930s as a low, dishonest decade filled with misguided optimism and unfulfilled promises, reflecting on how people had clever hopes for peace and progress that failed with the onset of war. So, क्या है Auden थिंक्स कि ये जो डिकेड था 1930s का, क्योंकि 1939 में वॉर स्टार्ट हुआ. अभी ऐसा नहीं है कि 30 आई मीन लेट 1930s को वॉर स्टार्ट हुआ. इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि 1930s बाकी का डिकेड एकदम पीसफुल था. नहीं, वॉर तब भी चल रहा था, लेकिन वो मतलब एक मेजरली वर्ल्ड वॉर टू स्टार्ट नहीं हुआ था. ये लेट 1930s को ये वर्ल्ड वॉर टू स्टार्ट हुआ. तो ऑर्डन रेफरेंसेस दिस डिकेड एज लो डिसऑनेस्ट डिकेड. तो इस टाइम में क्या था, लोग वाज फील्ड विद ऑप्टिमिज्म, बट नॉट दैट ऑप्टिमिज्म कि वी हैव टू बी गुड, वी हैव टू बी नाइस, बट विद द ऑप्टिमिज्म कि we will kill that people, we will kill the Nazis are thinking that we will kill the French people, and it was going like this. So you like आप लोग समझ गए ना what was like the main motive of the, I mean main context of the stanza 1. The Auden is, फिर से एक बार समझाता हूँ. Auden is sitting in a bar. He feels he is isolated from the world, and he is sitting there just to observe and not to act. Auden thinks that this 1930s, this decade is a decade where where there is a number of low, dishonest people, filled with misguided optimism and unfulfilled promises. Like in this decade, people thought, because in this decade there are many inventions, like the industrialization was very high, because because of this pre-war, that innovation was going very high. So like Auden thought, and other people also thought that like from now on there will be peace and progress, but all this failed with the beginning of the war. Now we'll do things much quicker because I took a very long time in this stanza 1. Okay, so stanza 2. Waves of anger and fear circulate over the bright and darkened lands of the earth, observing our private lives. Auden describes an atmosphere of widespread fear and anger. These emotions circulate across the world, impacting both public affairs and private lives, indicating that the fear of war affects everyone. The stanza emphasizes the global nature of anxiety as both bright and darkened land are impacted, showing that no one is immune to the consequences of the conflict. Okay, now imagine a war is going on. Forget about war. Just think, in your neighboring house, a very big fight is going on. So it will affect you. I mean, either you will go there, you will try to sort out their poem, their internal war, whatever it is. So what the poet wants to like explain or convey is that the emotions of war, it doesn't stop within the people involved in the war. It affects like as a whole public affair and private life. No one in the globe will be immune to the consequences of the war. Everyone will be affected by it. I hope stanza 2 is clear. It's a very simple stanza. Now let's go to stanza 3. The unmentionable order of death offends the September night. In a striking metaphor, Auden evokes the unmentionable order of death, a grim image suggesting that death and violence have become unavoidable and are most palpable in the air. The reference to September further emphasizes the sense of unease as the month when the war first fell into war. So Auden uses this line, the unmentionable order of death, as a metaphor. Okay, and what is this metaphor about? This metaphor is about a reference to September. So that September, like when the war first began, September 1, that whole month people used to smell death. Not smell, you can say now when death is going on around you, you smell death is coming. And just think, when you know that you can die, how will you feel inside you? That's what Auden means to say. So in stanza 4, you can read everything there. I'll just explain the summaries. Auden reflects on history, huh? Stating that scholars can trace the roots of conflict from Martin Luther Reformation to the present. Okay, so from the history, like from where the war has started. So war has started from Martin Luther's Reformation and going on till now. Till now, when I am recording this video. So like Auden wants to imply that these divisions of ideologies, conflict, this madness of becoming the powerful, these were planted in our human mind from a long ago. Auden, Auden tries to like convey us that historians shaped us like this, where we are bound to this madness of war. If you read this stanza 4, you will understand like what Auden means to say. I'll give you this PDF if you just comment. Okay, in stanza 5, Auden considers the idea of psychopathic god. Like you can read here, the huge image made a psychopathic god, and I and the public know what all school children learn. Those whom evil is done, to evil in return. You understand this line? Those to whom evil is done, do evil in return. It's a very bad line. It's a line I can give a reference to the line, like an eye for an eye for an eye. What was the line? I forgot it. An eye for an eye blinds the whole world, makes the whole world blind. So see, it's a circle. It's a cycle going on. If you think like this, to whom evil is done, do evil in return. Like if someone beats you, you beat him. But people think that if we do this, then there will be peace. But it's not like that. Suppose if you kill me, my son will kill you. Then your son will kill my son. Then my grandchildren will kill your son. Then this thing will go on, and ultimately, no one will be happy. No one will be safe. Which is why our Gandhiji thought that if someone slaps you in one cheek, you show your another one. So it's like that. I think you understand this stanza. Then stanza 6. In this stanza, Auden references Thucydides, an ancient Greek historian. Guys, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong. You can check that in Google. Thucydides, the ancient Greek historian who chronicled the fellow, whatever it is, I am unable to pronounce. Limitation of political system symbolizes failure of democracy in the face of dictatorship and war. So, what Auden refers to this ancient Greek historian who prophesies this whole back that whenever there will be dictatorship and war, it will be cruel. So, like Auden refers to this historian who prophesies that politicians often use empathic rhetoric to manipulate or pacify people who remain indifferent or apathetic. If I'm unable to explain this stanza correctly, you can just read here. I have to make this video short, which is why I don't want to go to that much explanation. Okay, now let's move to stanza 7. All I have is a voice to undo the full lie. The romantic lie in the brain of the sensual man in the street, and the lie of authority whose buildings grope the sky. Okay, so Auden in this line has a self-imagery. Okay, so Auden thinks of himself Auden thinks of himself and his role as a poet. Auden thinks that his voice is his only tool to combat deception. He thinks through his voice, which is through his poems, he wants to change these deceptive ideas. He critiques both the romantic lie held by average person, perhaps the lie of nationalism or idealism, and the lie of authority. So what he wants to explain is that the romantic lie, which are told by not our partners, our politicians tells us romantic lie that after this war you will be given the authority, that you will be the supreme power. But these are all romantic lies. See, symbolized by tall buildings, which represent the power and ambition of political institutions that dominate and deceive. So this, you have to understand these political leaders do their wars from our shoulders. I mean, we don't do the war, but they carry our emotion. Like when they put their emotion in us, it it multiplies, and we give them validation. Go, you have to win this war. Which is why Auden mentioned it as the romantic lie told to us by politician, and this all are just deceptive. I hope it is clear. Uh, there is no such thing as a state, and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or to the police. We must love one another or die. Now, see, in this stanza, Auden refers to many things like hunger, citizen, police. We must love one another or die. So, Auden refers to the impact of the war. Suppose if you win the war, like suppose if a country wins the war, but like only the king is surviving. So who will produce food? No one. And then gradually the king will also die. So Auden wants to emphasize this, that war is not your enemy. Your enemy is hunger. Huh. Not enemy, in a reference that hunger allows no choice. I mean, suppose if you kill this other person and your own, what they say, तुम्हारा अपना तिजोरी ही खाली हो गया, then how will you survive? So Auden refers to this that no matter if you are a king or a labor, hunger will kill you both. It will not pardon anyone. So in order to survive like happily, fully, nicely, we must love one another or die. Because as I said, everything is a circle. If you love if you love someone, they will love you. If you kill one another, they will kill you. So either love people or die. This was simply the meaning of Auden. I mean, the reference to this line. In stanza 9, Auden concludes with an image of hope and despair. So this poem is not completely melancholic. There is a hopeful, like hope is also a theme of this poem. I will explain the theme more detail. Wait a second. So Auden concludes with an image of hope and despair. The world, defenseless under the night, lies in a stupor of ignorance and helplessness. However, there are still ironic points of light. People who strive for justice and goodness despite the odds. This small scattered act of kindness, resistance, or represent glimmers of hope. So I'll say line. This world is a torn place, and there are a few people who are sewing it slowly, slowly, slowly. So these people are not politicians who are like conveying wars. These people are like, according to Auden, these people are like, how do you say this? Like a small amount of people, poets or justice seekers who are trying to find justice in this war. And Auden has a hope or image of hope through these people who are fighting for this justice. And Auden looks for this hope that one day everything will be fine. Okay. In the next stanza, which is the final stanza, there are 10 stanzas only. In the final stanza is a personal resolution. Auden wishes to be among those composed of eros of and of dust, acknowledging his own humanity. He hopes to remain steadfast and to show an affirming flame by pursuing truth and compassion despite the darkness around him. This stanza encapsulates Auden's desire to live with integrity and hope, even in the face of despair. So Auden, in the final stanza, Auden resolutes to himself that he wishes to be among those people who acknowledges humanity and not superiority. You have to understand the difference between humanity and superiority. He hopes to remain steadfast and to show an affirming flame by pursuing truth and compassion despite the darkness around him. Like there is a, you can imagine ना, like कीचड़ में ही कदम खिलता है. So he wants to be like that. Like no matter whatever is going on in this universe, he wants to be among people who are truthful and have compassion around them. So Auden desires to live with integrity and hope, even in the face of despair. Okay, now let's talk about the analysis of the poem. If you don't know the analysis, you can skip the video or stop the video here. I know this video is getting long, but I don't want to make small video with less details. I want to include details in the video so that if someone is watching the video, they don't have to read anywhere. They can just write the exam. I hope if it helps. Okay, so the structure and form. The poem is written in 9 quadrants with somewhat irregular rhyme. I said it previously, it doesn't have a specific rhyme, this poem. It is irregular. So this, you have to understand this. This structure reflects a sense of controlled, measured despair. The slightly irregular rhyme scheme reinforced the unsettled, anxious tone of the poem. You have to understand. I think you did understand the tone of the poem. It's okay. So the tone and the mood. The poem is of solemn reflection. How Auden reflects himself, filled with deep melancholy. You know how Auden was so sad. Like in the whole poem, he was so like full of despair, anxiety, and all that. And an unsettling awareness of the human frailty and failure. Like how humans failed in their search of peace. The mood, though pessimistic, occasionally moves toward hope. As you can see in the stanza 9 and stanza 10, there was a ray of hope in Auden's voice, in Auden's tone, which acknowledges the potential of individual kindness. I hope you understand this. Okay. Now themes. You can read all this here. I'll just read out the topics, the main things. Historical responsibility and collective guilt. I think I have explained this nicely. The isolation of the individual. That was also explained in the stanza 1. Surge of meaning and redemption, which is there in stanza 9 and stanza 10. Okay? I think it will be easy for you guys to understand this now. Now, literary devices. There are allusions. Auden references many historical, mythological, and literary sources, such as that Greek historian. I again don't know how to pronounce this. Thucydides and the concept of psychic wound. In Freudian terms, to emphasize how this old narrative continually shape current events. Like as I said, it was this mindset of being the supreme power. It was shaped within us from history. Okay. Then there is irony. Ordinary references to enlightenment. It's a better irony where hope. You can read this so bad line. Hopes of reason and progress have only led to more chaos. You can understand this, like the depth of this line. Like if you hope to live a life of reason and progress, this will only lead to more chaos. So where do we find peace? You write about this you can write about this in the comment section. Okay, so let's know a short understanding on why Auden wrote this poem. Okay, so I gave the context earlier only, but you can do that again. So Auden wrote this poem in response to the outbreak of World War II. Okay, the poem reflects Auden's reaction on Hitler's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, which marked the beginning of the war. Through this poem, Auden expressed his anxieties, his disillusionment with the political and social system of the time, his moral contemplation of humanity's role in allowing such conflicts to arise, Here are some reasons why Auden wrote this poem. You can read the whole thing here. I'll just go through the points, the topics. A response to the political and social crisis. Moral reflection on collective guilt and responsibility. Personal disillusionment and existential crisis. A call for love and compassion. Critique of art and authority. Okay, so these are the main points, and there is just this summary. You can read the whole thing here. So I think I have explained the poem, I mean, in a little nice way, you can say. So I don't say that you just listen to this video and then just do nothing. You take this video as a reference and then just read the poem once again, or read the summary, or read the stanza-wise explanation once again. Then this whole poem will be like a very clear to you, and you can write the answers about the poem and also about Auden and his ideologies. So I hope this video helped you. Bye guys. See you in the next video.